What's up, everybody? Big E from Big E TV. Teen Tuesday, October the 15th. We are less than a week away from Canada's most important election of all time, and I am stoked. My special guest, Justin Kulik, the progressive NDP's Kelowna-Lake Country candidate. I'm excited to talk to Justin. I see you there. So let's bring you on. Hey.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
Justin is the progressive NDP candidate for Kelowna-Lake Country in this upcoming federal election. How you feeling?
We're getting to that point where it's starting to dawn on me that this is almost over.
You're the savior. You're the superhero.
All right. The riding boundaries are a little weird. Kelowna Mission, which I live in, Kelowna-Lake Country. That's an adorable cat. Federally, most of Kelowna Mission, Kelowna-Lake Country get combined into the federal Kelowna-Lake Country, but Kelowna West is mostly part of central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola. It's a bizarre difference in the boundary. One side of the street will be one riding, the other side of the street will be the other riding, and it'll be the other way provincially. It's a weird...
Gerrymandering at its worst, if you ask me. I mean, that Liberals redrew a lot of the boundaries. These Liberal strategists, how can we see if we can, redraw everything so we get just the advantages we want? Justin, I saw up in your bio here, you worked as a coordinator for Fair Vote Canada, spearheading a petition to end food waste in supermarkets. Very noble of you. You participated in BC Youth Parliament, experience bringing you closer to your dream of doing more for the people of Kelowna-Lake Country.
I filed my papers and I was nominated while I was still in high school.
Oh, wow. How old are you?
I'm 18. I am tied for the youngest candidate ever nominated.
I thought you were 32. According here to your bio, whoa, this cat. Sorry. You say that you believe a sustainable and affordable future depends on what we decide to invest in now, like fighting climate change and implementing universal pharmacare. You're ready to focus on the issues that directly impact on people's lives and look forward to working hard to serve them.
Nationally, there are a wide variety of issues, but in Kelowna-Lake Country specifically, there are two big issues that people talk to me about. The environment and climate change, the other one's affordability. The combination of wildfires, of flooding, and droughts all at the same time, it's getting worse. Realistically, we need to consider that it's going to get worse, right? Wildfires are going to get worse without significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Because we know Canada's warming at twice the global rate, and it's going to affect people in the Okanagan Valley more than most places. It's one of those big concerns I'm hearing at the doorstep. The other one being affordability. In recent years, especially, the cost of housing in Kelowna has skyrocketed, somewhat like Vancouver.
No, not like Vancouver.
On a smaller scale.
Yes. Okay, all right, I'll meet you out.
We're seeing people forced to move out of Kelowna after living there for 20, 30 years because they simply can't afford housing anymore. Our rental vacancy rate a couple years ago was the lowest in the country. So people who even could afford to live in Kelowna simply couldn't find a place to live. We're seeing these combinations of problems in housing just accumulating year after year.
So what could you do about that then as a new Democratic member of Parliament for Kelowna-Lake Country? What could you do to make housing more affordable for people?
Well, a couple things. Well, as part of our national platform, we plan to build 500,000 units of affordable housing over 10 years. In previous years, Lake Country has been seen as this sort of branch off of Kelowna where we find more affordable housing, and that's just not the case anymore. Having a safe place to stay is a human right.
A lot of your generation are starting to feel like, it's not even possible to have, unless you come from a place of wealth or, financial position, that you're not even in the ballpark. You're not even in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I can confidently say, and it sucks that I have to say this, without major change in the way housing is viewed, I will never be able to afford a home in Kelowna. I was born in Kelowna. I've lived there for years, but I'm not in that situation where I'd be able to afford a home.
I know the positions quite well of the parties. Well, not the Conservatives, because I don't even know if they've even released their platform yet. What a joke that is. I think it's a bigger issue on affordability in general. And that's what I love about the New Democrats platform, about, pharmacare for all, working towards, I believe, dental care, optical care. That's going to affect everybody.
Exactly, because
I am so stoked about that, Justin. You said you're the youngest.
I'm tied. To my knowledge, there are 3 18-year-olds running. The others being Kevin Hua in Carleton and Jaden Delator in Richmond, Stevenson East.
Jaden, interesting enough, I was just talking to him. I'm going to interview him later in the week.
Ask him when his birthday is.
My friend Dan, he's a Prince Rupert guy through and through. When I put up that post and I said, excited to be interviewing some of our real Canadian superheroes all week on Big E TV. Everybody has superpowers, inside of us. Some people have the ability to get those out. When I see Greta Thunberg, what she's doing, right? She's a friggin' superhero. Unbelievable. Dan said, superheroes, what are their supernatural powers? I like how you chimed in there. I said, well, if Canada's NDP forms a government on Monday, you'll have your answer, Dan. And you went on to say, our superpowers include helping people, improving social services, and fighting the climate crisis. I love it. Friend of the show, Jessa McLean from Ontario, I've interviewed her before. She also added, not to mention our incredible hope, courage, and optimism in the face of seemingly endless opposition. Can you relate to that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's tough being such a young person in this sort of situation. There are people that come up to me, oh, you're just a kid, you don't know anything. Okay, look at what I've done instead, right? Yeah. I was 16 when I started that food waste petition. Now 250,000 people have signed it.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's pushback, but look at what I've done, what I'm standing for, and what I want to do.
How do you feel about being categorized as a millennial?
I find it interesting, the perspective people take regarding my generation, right? It's this idea of millennials are killing blank, right? We're killing the diamond industry. We're killing paper towels. Should we not look at why that's happening instead of just blaming an entire generation of people?
Hey, we've got a comment coming in here from Alexis Gail Ellis. She's a friend of the show. She's been on before. She says, glad to see young people try to get seats in government, seeking new blood, and it's time to change. Cool. How are you doing with that youth vote? Are you getting young people engaged in the process?
Absolutely. I mean, stat from Elections Canada as to how many people voted in advanced polls, it's up from previous elections.
2 million in the first 2 days alone, exactly. Up 25%.
And we know that people at universities are voting on campus before the election. People love seeing young people get involved. Mm-hmm. Just speaking to some residents about the election, the feedback I got was, this is great. There are young people getting in. And I was happy to talk to them about all their concerns. Young people are focused a lot, environment and climate change, housing affordability in general, to be fair. Electoral reform is a huge one I'm hearing. I was advocating in favor of the BC referendum on electoral reform. Justin Trudeau ran on a platform of saying, okay, within 18 months, we're going to table legislation to ensure that the 2015 election is the last election conducted in the first past the post system.
It's going to be around proportionate representation, some form of that.
Exactly. And when the electoral reform committee said, okay, this is what we suggest, Trudeau's Liberals voted against adopting the report. So something I'm hearing from a lot of young people is, well, wait a minute, we like that. Why can't we have that system instead? I've been a huge advocate of electoral reform. And it's one of those key issues for young people, it seems, as well as student loan debt being a major one. As soon as I'm elected, I'll say that, I'll be saying, all right, let's scrap the interest on student loans first and foremost. I don't think governments should be profiting and then working towards a tuition for university.
For those that need it.
Absolutely.
Need assistance.
Well, also considering that the cost of tuition has increased multifold in previous generations, at least, a part-time job was able to cover tuition costs. Now it isn't.
Right.
So it becomes increasingly more difficult for people to pay for their education, which increases the number of loans that people have to take out. Kind of plays into this idea of it being expensive not to have money, right? If you can afford to pay tuition, go ahead and you're not paying interest on it. If you can afford to get a filling done, okay, you don't have to pay for a root canal a couple years down the road. So it's this idea in our society that takes a minute to recognize. But as of status quo, if you don't have money, it'll cost you more money.
I'm curious your thoughts of the election, how it's been going overall across Canada. How have you seen things shaping up?
I think I've seen a lot of momentum build, especially after the English debate. So
For the NDP?
For the NDP.
Right. I agree.
And interestingly enough, I think it's coming as much from the Conservatives as it is from the Liberals today as well. Polls are released showing the NDP at 20%, which is more than we received in 2015 on election day.
Jagmeet Singh so strong in that Canadian debate. I couldn't believe how he dominated. But to listen to Trudeau and Scheer go at it reminded me of that South Park.
Don't let him rattle you. He's going to do whatever he can to try and mess with your head. Don't buy into it. Whatever he says, just respond with, "My opponent is a liar and he cannot be trusted."
People need to choose between a giant douche and a turd sandwich.
I should not be president. Okay? I will this country up beyond repair. She's not as bad as you think, I promise. And unlike me, she's actually capable of running this country.
My opponent is a liar and he cannot be trusted.
No! Oh my God, she is such a turd sandwich.
You ever see that one? Seriously, people were like thinking all they would do is rip on each other. The first thing Scheer said was blackface, and and then Trudeau's like, "Well, you're an American." And
he's giving off the vibes of Jack Layton in my mind. Right?
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, because of course Jack in his letter to Canadians, he talked about love, hope, and optimism. I think we're starting to see that coming through with Jagmeet as well, and I think that's translating into beneficial poll numbers. Jagmeet's favorability is skyrocketed. If media was talking about this over the last year instead of giving this notion of the NDP being on its deathbed, it's interesting to see that perspective coming not just from people but from the media as well.
Try to be progressive with Greens and with NDP, but the NDP, I love the fact that they stand up for people. You see that it's happening right now in Quebec.
I think it's interesting to see this kind of resurgence of the Bloc Québécois. I disagree with Yves-François Blanchet on Bill 21.
I think they're on the wrong side of history with that one, and it's and I'm really proud to see the NDP say, you know what, that's going to really hurt our chances in that province, but that's the DNA of the party that the party stands up for. I love to talk to young adults about technology because most people my age, they don't have a friggin' clue about what's really happening there, but your generation gets it. 2 words. I want to tell you what do they mean anything to you? Cambridge Analytica.
Cambridge Analytica, absolutely. I'm not sure how familiar you are with
I'm very familiar.
Okay, that entire affair should bring about a conversation regarding privacy and regarding elections and the technology.
The last count was 8,000 pieces of information that these supercomputers have on every single one of us, creating these psychological profiles that they can slice and dice and turn into algorithms so that they can feed our hopes and our fears towards changing our behavior. Why are we not talking about this?
That's a good question. I mean, once this story, it was right in the front of people's minds. It was all people were talking about for a while. It's this idea of, well, we'll think about this now until something more important comes out. I mean, over the last couple years, we've been talking about impeaching Donald Trump down in the U.S. But Cambridge Analytica, we were talking about for a couple weeks, and then we weren't. I think it just comes down to people's priorities. And
is it people's priorities, though, or is it the corporate media's priorities? And that people just don't understand what's going on, and that the corporate media has no desire to inform and educate. I don't know if you got the memo, but us humans are very addictive and self-destructive in our behaviors often. So these massive supercomputers are gathering all this data about us, all of our weak points, and then they're going to use that against us. And yet we do not have this discussion.
I agree with you.
The BC Privacy Commissioner, they came out with their report on what happened with Cambridge Analytica, and they realized that there was massive laws being broken by these social media companies. And then they had Mark Zuckerberg to come to Parliament to testify on his and the Facebook's behalf and Sheryl Sandberg, and they did not show up. And there was 11 countries present to grill them on that. And I learned from the CBC that, you know what, even if we convicted these guys of breaking our laws and disturbing our democracies, our worst penalty we could possibly impose on them was like $10,000 or something. It was like ridiculous. Senators, those aren't democratically elected. They're appointed by liberals and conservatives. The NDP has always removed themselves from that pork bellying and corporate welfare of the Senate. But the Senate's very powerful, and each senator has the equivalent of about 80,000 Canadians in terms of their voting power, yet they're not even democratically appointed.
I support abolishing the Senate entirely. We consider just in the 42nd Parliament how many bills died in the Senate after passing in the House. For example,
right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, for example, Rona Ambrose's bill regarding sexual assault training for judges,
right,
passed in the House of Commons, died in the Senate after years of delay. So much delay that Rona Ambrose wasn't even a member of Parliament anymore. I think it's bizarre that here we are, 2019, and this conversation regarding the Senate hasn't been discussed so much. And then here we are with this somewhat independent Senate that still kills bills from the House of Commons.
Hey, you've got a comment here from Isis Darosa, who says, "You're going to kill it, Justin. Best of luck." And Vera, "So heartwarming to see such a bright young man." This is my mom, by the way. "So principled, so informed. We need him in Ottawa." Awesome. Boy, you got lots of interest here on the call, Justin. Good for you, man.
Thank you.
Okay, what does this mean to you? SNC Lavalin.
SNC Lavalin. Again, one of those big issues. Of course, the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner did find that the Prime Minister violated the Conflict of Interest Act. And of course, this is in response to the complaint launched by the NDP.
I'm a business guy, you know. I love business. I love competitive. When John Peckman, the head of our competition bureau, has to step down and out of protest to say we do not have competition laws. Our competition bureau is being used by monopolistic corporations to protect their turf at the expense of all other businesses in Canada. That's exactly what happened with SNC Lavalin, where instead of being a competitive bid process, you know, let's say government contracts, it goes to liberal insiders or conservative buddies, you know, and I just like how it pulled the cloak of secrecy open for just a moment for us to peek into how it really worked. You ever see the movie The Matrix?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, we live in the Matrix, Justin. You know, we think we get choice. Think about it. We've only ever had pro-corporation, liberal or conservative heads of our country. And when you've got to choose between two companies that are bought and paid for by billionaires and corporations, at heart, do we really have a democracy? And that's why I think it's critical. People like yourself and New Democrats, Green Party candidates, heaven forbid there won't be any PPCers out there. Any thoughts on that party?
So in my riding, the People's Party candidate, John Barr, has had the word fascist written on a number of his signs.
Okay.
And while I don't agree with vandalism of election signs, I think there's a conversation to be had about why the word fascist specifically was used.
Exactly the same thing driving back from the Sunshine Coast on Thanksgiving on Sunday, and that was that the PPC parties were desecrated with these red anarchists, I think, were taken over. And I think that says a lot about Canadians, that they're not going to stand for that kind of overtly racist kind of tones to a political party. And what about business? You know, have you had much engagement with the business community there in the Kelowna-Lake Country area?
Yes, there are especially small business owners coming to me and saying yes, we support the NDP, recognizing that our platform includes lowering that small business tax rate by increasing the corporate tax. Well, I mean, I call myself an eco-socialist, and I kind of recognize the Green Party as being this more so eco-capitalist kind of party. Though, of course, the Green candidate in my riding, Travis Ashley, he's a very, very nice guy. We're the only two people to show up to a forum regarding the Central Okanagan Food Bank regarding food security. There are a couple other problems, of course. For example, in the Okanagan, there are two Green candidates, and Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola, and in North Okanagan, Shuswap, whose positions regarding abortion access is not
that's right. I
in
remember
favor,
that.
as the Green Party likes to say.
Okay, well, Justin, we've had a fantastic conversation. Final thought, why Justin Kulik for Kelowna-Lake Country in this federal election, voting New Democrat?
Well, I guess I would just say I'm fighting for affordability in a green economy. I'm here for people, and I'm here for the planet before profits for corporations. So,
Okay.
so I would just want people to know when they go out on election day that I'm fighting for them, and I'm fighting for the nature around them. If there's ever issues that come up that pin people versus profit, I'm choosing people.
I really like the way you talk. Like when I talk to you, I really feel like there's a sincerity there that, you speak from the heart. So in that respect, you're not a traditional politician. Okay. All right, Justin. Well, good luck on Monday.
Thank you.
Get out there and keep fighting hard. Good luck, man. And thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Be on Big E TV. You going to give me a shout out?
Check out Big E TV with Eric Christensen.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful night.